former Vice President Joe Biden has been under fire for inappropriately touching women. Now, look, you guys know there's been a lot of video out there showing him putting his hands on the shoulders of women and smelling their hair and getting basically super uncomfortably close to women and girls. Now, Business Insider is reporting that the former vice president has been subject of this controversy after a former Nevada State Assemblywoman wrote an op-ed accusing him of touching her inappropriately and kissing her head during a 2014 campaign event. So that's what started this whole thing. Basically, again, we've known that he's been doing this. In fact, back in 2015, Jon Stewart ran a segment on this with the caption, "The Audacity of Grope," which I found highly amusing, even at the time. So now, the woman, Lucy Flores, brought this back, and she said, look, this is an issue of personal space. He got into my personal space. I felt very uncomfortable, and I wanted people to know about this. I wanted him to know about this so that maybe he didn't do it anymore. Okay, that's perfectly fine. In fact, she said, quote, "For the record, I don't believe that it was a bad intention. I'm not in any way suggesting that I felt sexually assaulted or sexually harassed. I did feel invaded. I felt that there was a violation of my personal space." So now look, I believe her because she says he didn't have any ill intent. I believe that. I believe that. I don't think that really in his heart of hearts, I don't think he thinks I was doing anything wrong. Well, what do you mean? I was being friendly. I was being supportive, right? So now, one of the prominent videos from this, by the way, that backs that up is a confirmation of Ash Carter. Now, this was during the Obama years. Ash Carter was on stage, as was his wife, Stephanie Carter. Now, that picture, that video has been used by a lot of people to say, oh, see, look, she's completely uncomfortable. Well, let me give you her statement on that. Stephanie, in her own words, says, the Joe Biden in my picture is a close friend helping someone get through a big day, for which I will always be grateful. So as the sole owner of my story, it is high time that I reclaim it from strangers, Twitter, the pundits, and late-night hosts. Now, it's important to note that the Carters are really good friends of the Biden family. And again, I do have no doubt that he was offering support. The thing is, look, Joe Biden is old school, right? He does not understand personal space when it comes to strangers. Well, no, not when it comes to strangers. When it comes to women, and women only. Imagine he does this to a dude. No, that doesn't happen. And so that's really part of the problem. When it comes to personal family friends, sure, you can do that. You can feel friendly, right? There's not a whole lot of issues, even though there might be some issues. And if there are, they should definitely speak up. But when it comes to people who are obviously uncomfortable, as we've seen many of the people that Joe Biden got a little too close to, maybe you should get the hint. I mean, look, not everybody likes being touched. And there are definitely a lot of situations where you should not do that. No, there is no situation that you should be doing that, in my view. Okay, so now there was another woman, there's a sexual assault survivor that was speaking at a sexual assault survivors conference. Biden allegedly put his hand on her thigh. Why would you do that? Why would you do that? No. So look, I know it sounds like I'm kind of defending him a little bit. Maybe it's because I think he's oblivious, and even though it's no excuse, I kind of get it. But we've all known those people who are a little too friendly, who get a little too close, and they should know better. And I don't know how he didn't know that before. Did nobody tell him that that's creepy? Did nobody say, hey, dude, maybe you shouldn't do that. That looks bad. Maybe they did. Maybe not. Maybe he didn't listen. I don't know. But that said, he's got a clear history of doing this, right? And it is a problem. And I think it's always been a problem, right? Now, on to the main point of the story here is that some of Biden's staffers don't believe that. They believe that this only became a problem thanks to Bernie Sanders. Now, wait a minute. What does Bernie Sanders have anything to do with this? Well, the plain answer would be no. Bernie Sanders is not involved. Bernie Sanders has even gone on the record kind of defending Joe Biden. He said, quote, "I have no reason not to believe Lucy, and I think what this speaks to is the need to fundamentally change the culture of this country." But adds, I'm not sure that one incident alone disqualifies anyone. Yeah. So, nonetheless, Axios is reporting that several people close to Biden are suspicious that the Bernie Sanders camp is, quote, at least partly behind the anti-Biden campaign. Now, wait a minute. That is complete and utter insanity. Oh, it's that Bernie Sanders is behind this whole thing. Really now? I mean, come on. For one, okay, Bernie Sanders is far too nice for this. Again, he told Americans back in 2016, if you remember, running against Hillary Clinton, the emails come out and he's like, I'm sick of the damn emails. I don't want to talk about the damn emails. I want to talk about policy. And he has, speaking of policy, kept his critiques of his opponents to policy positions. And look, the reason I say that, and right now I'm, of course, probably making establishment head spin, is that if you look at the primary between Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama, right, that was not about policy. No, it was massively negative. Attack ads everywhere. The 3 a.m. ad, the Obama in Muslim garb picture that got released. I mean, that was some nasty campaigning. That's nothing compared, or 2016 and now is nothing compared to what happened in that 2008 primary. It was bad. Bernie Sanders, however, never ran a single negative ad. Nonetheless, you have Biden staffers and the establishment taking this to an absolutely absurd level. Bernie Sanders is to blame for this. He's behind this attack against Joe Biden. What a despicable person. Really, show me one bit of proof, one shred, one email that shows that Bernie Sanders is behind any of this. I mean, did he go back and film all these times of Joe Biden obviously not understanding the idea of personal space? Did he? Did he? Do you have any sort of proof that he instructed any of these women, two of which just came out today, to basically say the same story of Joe Biden kind of did some creepy stuff, wasn't sexual, but it was just uncomfortable, close, and a little creepy. And I was creeped out about this. Like he overstepped boundaries. Oh, but Jeff, Lucy Flores used to work for Our Revolution, which is the Bernie Sanders group. Yeah, and you know what? She left. She worked there for a short time, and she actually left on not so friendly terms. She has no reason to lie about this. Next. Oh, well, what about the timing? Isn't the timing suspicious? Well, you know what that sounds like? Every time, like, okay, you guys remember the Kavanaugh hearings, right? The right wing would say, oh, but look at the timing, Dr. Ford, and look at the other supposed victims of Brett Kavanaugh. Now, look, not every victim, of course, was being honest that we know of, right? But Dr. Ford was incredibly credible in her allegation, and so were many of the other women, right? So, but what we're hearing here is the same kind of conspiracy theories that the right used against Dr. Ford when the Kavanaugh hearings. Oh, the timing. Oh, it's a political attack. And the thing is here, Biden didn't do sexual assault. This is not sexual assault. This is just being creepy. And the worst and weirdest thing that Joe Biden did is there was a staffer for Jim Himes, right? He apparently grabbed her neck and pulled her head down. She thought, oh my God, he's going to try to kiss me. No, he was rubbing noses with her, which is definitely weird and creepy and wrong, but it's not in the same vein of rape or sexual assault. It's just really weird, creepy, and definitely crosses boundaries of personal space. Okay, so, and yet, of course, unfortunately, I'm seeing a lot of Biden defenders sound like the people that they attacked during the Ford hearings. I mean, come on. Can we see beyond blind partisanship here and see that what he's doing is wrong? Now, it kind of feels to me like it's total hypocrisy and another way to justify attacking Bernie Sanders for something that he had literally nothing to do with. And, by the way, Bernie Sanders wasn't even involved in this at all until he came in to say, well, I don't think it should be disqualifying for Mr. Biden or for anyone. Which will undoubtedly probably get him in trouble later. Now, one more thing here. Axios did mention, and that's who wrote the story, that one prominent backer of Joe Biden thinks that when Biden runs, he's ready to kill Bernie. And of course he means, in the primary. But now, here's the thing. There's also the claim that Bernie's only doing this because he's scared to lose the nomination to Joe Biden. And Joe Biden, Joe Biden tops some of the polls in some of the important states. A lot of name recognition. There's a chance he'll do fairly well, at least in the first part of the primary. And this is the pattern with Joe Biden, by the way. Every primary that he's been in, he starts out kind of strong and then ends up fading fast. And why is that? That's not necessarily because of anything that has to do with this. No, it's his policy. His record is actually far worse than anything to do with not understanding people's personal space. I mean, for example, he's pro-Iraq war. He spoke out very much in favor of the war. He's pro-banker, had no problem with giving speeches to banks and supporting Hillary Clinton and when she was giving speeches to Goldman Sachs. You have Matthew Iglesias of Vox News referring to him, by the way, as, quote, the Hillary Clinton of 2020. And at this point, that is not a compliment. He does not mean it in a good way. And in addition to being pro-bank and pro-war, he voted for the Defense of Marriage Act before he did help make gay marriage legal. So you have to look at the nuance there. He was very pro-anti-gay. But that sounds... Actually, he was very pro-defense of marriage, which is anti-gay. And then he came out later and was like, well, yeah, we're actually for same-sex marriage. So look, that's an evolution. And if you want to ignore that, that's fine. That is part of his record, right? And let's be fair about that. Also, other things that are part of his record that he may not agree with now is his stance on being tough on crime legislation. So look, I don't have a problem with people evolving, but you have to look at his record, and you also have to look at what he believes now. And he has positioned himself as sort of the anti-Bernie Sanders. And so, yes, going to continue to be pro-war, going to continue to be pro-bank, pro-establishment. And so if that matters to you, then Joe Biden's record, not so alluring, not so good. And I think in a country that still has this anti-establishment wave going on and looking more towards progressives, Joe Biden is not going to do very well. That's just my read of the situation. Now, I'm not saying, of course, he's completely horrible. Obviously, he'd be better by Trump, or better than Trump by miles, but I also have to mention that that's kind of a low bar for Democrats. So, now, is this to say that I think that there's a reason they want to blame Bernie Sanders? Yeah. They're scared of his fundraising. They're scared of the energy behind Bernie Sanders and what that energy brings to the campaign, to the election. And right now, this also shows you that they consider Bernie Sanders their top opponent. And I think the very reasons they ascribe to Sanders for allegedly fueling these attacks on Biden may be just their own projection. I think they're projecting. I don't know for sure, but to me, it seems possible, if not likely, in my opinion. Now, what I don't know here, as well as whether this will sink Biden's campaign. I don't know for sure. And I'm not even sure that this alone should sink his campaign. I think the policy positions that he has and his disdain for millennials and some of the other stuff, for example, there was something that I missed earlier, making sure that people can't discharge their student loans in bankruptcy. He helped with that. But Again, I should note that I'm not going to be the person making this decision, or who should be. I think women should ultimately be making that decision going forward, as they are a major part of the Democratic Party, a major part of the base. And so they should be making the decision on whether or not this is excusable, or should it disqualify you or not. They should make the decision as it should be. Hey guys, hopefully you enjoyed that free video. Now I'm going to have to ask you a favor. Between the demonetization and the YouTube algorithm messing around with view counts, etc., we're having a hard time adjusting to the new YouTube reality, which is where you guys come in. See, we have a Patreon, patreon.com/TYTNation, set up to help us rely on you guys, the viewers, instead of big corporate ads. Look, you know the show. You know how I'm not in favor of big corporations anyway. So help us transition away from relying on the ad model to pay the bills and sign up to be a patron, patreon.com/TYTNation. That goes a long way to help us keep the lights on. And you guys will know that you're supporting independent, progressive media.